You might have heard about it, that fragile ceasefire. The one between India and Pakistan that snagged headlines back in May 2025. It's a real eye-opener, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It almost sounds like just another news flash at first, but then you really stop to think these are two nuclear powers with, decades of rivalry.
Exactly. What really brings it home is, well, the intricate history behind this conflict, the roots that go all the way back to partition in 1947, when India and Pakistan were born out of a messy division.
Yeah, right. And there's Kashmir, it's not just a disputed territory, it's like the beating heart of this tension for over 70 years, isn't it?
Correct. Kashmir is, repeatedly the flashpoint in wars and skirmishes. From the wars in 1947-48, 1965, the war in 99 over Kargil, and even milder but persistent issues like the Siachen conflict.
Siachen, that icy, high-altitude battlefield where more soldiers unfortunately succumbed to the bitter cold than bullets, right?
Yeah, it's like a natural tragedy layered upon an already tense geopolitical backdrop. And then, in April 2025, there was the Pahalgam attack in Indian-administered Kashmir, a brutal incident that took 26 lives, reigniting old wounds.
And that led, very quickly, to a series of military responses from both sides, didn't it? I recall India launching, something known as Operation Sindoor.
Yes, indeed. India's response was swift and forceful, accusing Pakistan-based insurgent groups almost immediately. And in the ensuing days, between May 6th and May 10th, 2025, both sides carried out military strikes, right up until a tense ceasefire was brokered.
Exactly. What really caught my attention, though, was how modern the conflict has become. Not only was there physical fighting, but cyber warfare also played a huge part.
Absolutely. It's like the battlefield went digital too. Key Indian government websites, including the Ministry of Defense, the Press Information Bureau, even the PM and President's offices, they all got hit by DDoS attacks.
Yeah, exactly. A physical ceasefire didn't mean peace in the digital realm at all, huh?
No, not at all. It, illustrates how modern conflicts are layered. Even when armies pull back, the cyber front can continue to simmer. A long, low-level confrontation that might, escalate if not managed carefully.
Now, if we take a step back, the deeper roots of this whole rivalry really start with 1947, right? Partition, the division of communities, and Kashmir being left unresolved.
Right you are. Partition wasn't exactly a clean break. It left vast, complicated minorities and unresolved grievances, especially when you consider that nearly 1/3 of all Muslims from undivided India ended up within India's borders.
Yeah, it's a really messy legacy. And with every major war, 1947-48, 1965, 1971 with Bangladesh, and 1999's Kargil conflict, Kashmir always seemed to be lurking in the background, fueling those disputes.
Exactly. And don't forget the numerous smaller skirmishes and border incidents over the years that have maintained this atmosphere of lingering tension.
Shifting gears a little bit, though, what about the other layers in this rivalry, like economics, military strategy, and even cultural ties?
Oh, that's a fascinating angle. Politically and militarily, there's a persistent atmosphere of distrust. For instance, disputes over territories like Sir Creek and water rights. The Indus Water Treaty is a major bone of contention, with India holding most of the upstream control.
Right. I've heard Pakistan frequently complains about India's water usage, especially now with climate change hitting the glaciers and reducing water flow. But I do wonder, isn't the treaty mostly holding up despite these undercurrents?
That's true, the treaty has survived, but both sides undeniably view it through a lens of suspicion. I mean, some reports even suggested that India might be moving towards a unilateral change in the treaty, which naturally stokes alarm in Pakistan.
That's a valid concern. And then there's the cyber front, as we discussed, which now layers over conventional military thinking. It really adds a whole new dimension to their stance.
Exactly, it's like you have traditional elements of war, plus this digital warfare that keeps the tension alive even after actual fighting slows down.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let's talk about trade and economic interactions. It's a bit surprising, but there's still significant trade happening indirectly, isn't there?
Yes, trade via neutral hubs like Dubai is estimated at over $4 billion a year. India even extended most favored nation status to Pakistan at one point, though the reciprocity is somewhat lacking.
Got it. It's almost ironic. Amid all the conflict, economic interdependence seems like the one arena where there's some hope for, mutual benefit.
Absolutely. Economic interdependence sometimes offers a glimmer of possibility for cooperation. But on the flip side, unresolved issues still keep political leaders and the media in a constant state of crossfire, which can overshadow those economic gains.
Yeah, exactly. And culturally, despite, the harsh realities, there's been an undercurrent of shared heritage. Language, music, food, even sports like cricket.
Right. Cricket diplomacy is one of those fascinating examples. Even though political narratives are divisive, both sides share cultural ties that remind them of common ground.
Yes, absolutely. But I've also heard that sometimes cultural exchanges are hindered by governmental pressures and security measures, right?
That's true. There are deliberate restrictions, bans on films, limited travel. These factors contribute to the polarization between people even when there's shared heritage.
Now, here's where I'd like to challenge one point a bit. Given that economic interests and cultural exchange exist, shouldn't we expect, in theory, these to eventually override the political tensions, especially with a shared water crisis looming?
That's a strong argument. In theory, mutual survival needs, like cooperation on water resources amid climate change, should foster collaboration. But historical mistrust and, nationalist narratives on both sides have so deeply embedded themselves that even economic or cultural incentives may not be enough.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. It almost feels like a constant tug of war between logic and emotion, history and hope.
Precisely. And when you add elements like cyber warfare and the emergence of drones, you further complicate the strategic calculations on both sides.
Yep, that's for sure. Speaking of drones, the introduction of loitering munitions and drone warfare really ups the ante, doesn't it?
It does. It creates a new and, a significantly unpredictable risk layer, where miscalculations could rapidly escalate a situation, which makes the whole ceasefire even more fragile.
Exactly. And then there are the back-channel diplomatic efforts that eventually brought about the ceasefire in May 2025. Basically, quiet, behind-the-scenes talks between military leaders and national security advisors.
Right. A true reminder that sometimes the most effective conflict management happens away from the public eye, with, direct dialogue between the people who understand the stakes best.
Indeed. But now, looking forward, the reports lay out several scenarios for the future. The worst case sounds like a full-blown military standoff, even a nuclear arms race, which is truly grim.
Exactly. And then there's the middle ground, where the status quo remains. Mistrust, limited economic cooperation, and a largely transactional relationship. And then there's that best-case scenario of constructive dialogue leading to confidence-building measures, ultimately fostering some incremental, albeit challenging peace.
Right. That's the dream scenario. But even the best-case scenario acknowledges that a final resolution of Kashmir might still remain elusive for a long time, right?
Correct. Kashmir remains the, linchpin issue around which so many of these tensions revolve. Even if you get some stability in other areas, without addressing Kashmir, the underlying fear and mistrust will persist.
Yes, absolutely. With all these layers, political, military, economic, cultural, and technological, it's really a tangled web that makes lasting peace a profound challenge.
Exactly. It's like, an onion with so many layers, each one complicating the next. And then there are urgent issues like the water crisis, driven further by climate change, that could eventually push both nations towards cooperation out of necessity.
That possibility is there. And let's not forget how global players, like the US, China, and international organizations, have a role too, sometimes urging restraint or helping broker these fragile ceasefires through subtle pressures.
Absolutely. Though their involvement is often cautious, no one wants to be drawn into a nuclear standoff. It's a a high-wire act of
Right on,
diplomacy.
exactly. So if we step back and really look at it, what do you think are the real chances for lasting peace here? Is it just a series of temporary pauses, or could there be a genuine breakthrough?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? With all this history, deeply entrenched national identities, and the recurring crisis points, lasting peace seems, well, incredibly challenging. But sometimes, shared crises, like severe water shortages or economic collapses, might force a kind of cooperation that transcends
That's a thought-provoking
politics.
angle. It really underscores the idea that peace isn't just the absence of conflict, but an ongoing layered process of trust building and, progress on multiple fronts.
Exactly. And while this ceasefire in May 2025 may be fragile, it's a window for analysis, a chance to deliberate on what can be improved. Whether the battle is fought in battlefields, cyberspace, or in the hearts and minds of the people.
Truly a complex playing field indeed. Well, that was quite the deep dive into a very multifaceted issue. Thanks for walking through all these layers and complexities. It really makes you think about how delicate peace can be.
Absolutely. It's a constant reminder that issues like these demand, our close attention. Until next time, let's keep questioning and searching for those breakthroughs that might someday pave the way for lasting peace.
Yeah, indeed.